October 27th, and my name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla with your legislative update for the day. So the first thing I want to talk about is the state's bond rating. Moody's, which is the agency in New York in charge of determining these bond ratings, lowered New Mexico's bond rating a couple of days ago. And this is a huge, huge problem for the state. Now, why is it? Well, our bond rating is like our credit rating. And as you know, if you have a very good credit rating, if you've paid off all your loans and your bills and organizations look at you as a safe bet to loan money to, your credit rating goes down. And when your credit rating goes down, you can borrow more money with less of an interest rate. So you have more money to spend on your house or your student loan or whatever. Well, the state has the same issue with its bond rating. When our bond rating is high, and it used to be the highest possible, we could borrow money for roads and bridges and schools and senior centers and all those things using your tax money to pay for those things and get the best rate possible. Because of our state budget hole, however, and the fact that we have much lower reserves because we're using it to pay off this debt, because we've basically thrown our hat in with oil and gas revenues and those are very low, Moody's lowered our bond rating, which means it's going to cost millions of more dollars in your taxpayer money to pay for those things that we weren't paying before, and it may take years to bring that rating back up. And this is a big, big deal, and it's one of the major reasons we need to get away from just relying on oil and gas revenue for 30% of our state's revenues. The second thing I want to talk to you about is an interim committee I'm participating in, the State Water and Natural Resources Committee. And one of the things we were talking about was forests, and as you can see, I am in a forest right now outside of Ruidoso on my way to Roswell for the second day of our meetings. And we were talking about watershed restoration and some of the things that the state is doing to prevent forest fires, keep forests in place. And when you do that, you allow for snowpacks to not evaporate as much and go back into state aquifers at a much higher level. And there's actually some good systematic things that the state is doing. First off, we've had a compact with other states so that when they have forest fires, we can send our fire departments to help with them. And then when we have a problem, they can send people to help with us. And this is really great because a lot of times forest fires don't really recognize state boundaries. There's also a lot more systematic things that states are doing in terms of treatment. And what that means is you can go in and thin forests out so that you don't have these really dense amounts of forest, so that they can have time to grow really thick. So when there's a fire, they burn very hot and very long. And that's been pretty successful. I mean, we've had a couple of bad forest fires this year, but it looks like those systems are actually starting to work in terms of minimizing the effect of forest fires. A couple of real failures, though, we've had are, number one, state planning. It seems like all we do a lot of times for water is plan and plan and plan, and we don't really have any sort of action items that we take to make systems better in terms of what do we want to do? Do we want to use more efficient irrigation techniques? Do we want to have very specific structures we use in cities and counties for pricing on water to encourage more efficiency? Can we have better processes in transferring water from agriculture to residential and commercial use? These things are really hard to do because a lot of times they make people have hard decisions, right? And so a lot of times we plan for 30 and 40 years and we always talk about planning, we don't do anything, and we need to do better at that. The other thing that we haven't done as well is fund university research projects. And we heard from two research projects yesterday, a forest project at Highlands University where they really document across the state what we're doing in different parts of forests, how effective they are, what the possibilities of burning is for different parts of the forest. And in New Mexico Tech University, they have a great geologic program for documenting our groundwater, where it is, how much of it is going down. Remember, we have these aquifers below the ground that act as our reservoirs. And as we mine them more and more, we're not going to have it long term if they're not recharging. They also measure the salinity of different water. But when we cut our universities last year by 5%, it really harms these universities' ability to do these research projects and then allow us to make decisions moving forward on how we use our water to the most efficient way possible. Last thing we talked about yesterday was the San Agustin Aquifer, which is over near Datil and Magdalena, New Mexico. This is a very, very big underground aquifer that is in what is called a closed basin. So it's not recharged by water. And there is a proposal to use that water and ship it off to Rio Rancho. And a lot of locals are very, very angry about this, because they look at it as people taking their resources that they use in their wells for their homes and their farms and stuff like that. And this is going to become a much bigger deal as we move forward into the future, using water as a mined resource. Is it something that we want to protect in those basins, or is it something that cities and counties and people there need to be able to use? And it's going to create a lot of hard feelings on all sides. So these are the issues we're dealing with. As always, I appreciate you watching this. Thanks. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns on these or any other issues, I'd love to hear from you. Hope everyone has a great Thursday. Bye.